The King's Avatar, Chapter 1318 Only Victory. Audio source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1318, Only Victory. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. As soon as he was on stage, Lin Jingyan set aside all his feelings toward Wind Howl. Right now, he was a member of Team Tyranny. No matter who his opponent was, victory was his #1 priority. He entered the match. His character loaded in and moved forward toward the center of the map. But when a brawler Demon Subduer appeared in his field of view, Lin Jingyan couldn't help but feel a sharp pang of sadness. Sometimes, he envied Zhang Jiale. He had transferred to Tyranny, but at least he hadn't separated from his character. The character belonged to the team. Lin Jingyan understood this, of course. But after 7 years of partnership, he felt that he and Demon Subduer were one. The brawler character that Tyranny had made for him, Dark Thunder, wasn't bad at all, no worse than Demon Subduer. In fact, in order to fit his style, this Dark Thunder might be more similar to the old Demon Subduer than Demon Subduer itself currently was. But still, it wasn't the same. It wasn't just the name. All of the feelings that had accumulated after so many years of partnership with his character. They couldn't just be transferred to a new character so easily, even if the stats were almost the same. This was perhaps something that rookies could never understand. Probably they would all happily change to a stronger and more suitable character if given the chance. In the end, this day had finally arrived. Lin Jingyan sighed to his self. Ever since leaving Wind Howl, he had always wondered what it had be like if he had to face Demon Subduer one day. But before, he had only ever met his old character in the Team Competition, where the situation was so chaotic that the feeling wasn't particularly sharp. But now, the individual round, it was as though he and Demon Subduer were the last ones on Earth, and Lin Jingyan's feelings were tumultuous. Demon Subduer was circling around his spawn point. It seemed that Tang Hao had guessed that Lin Jingyan would choose to move strategically, and so he was currently studying his surroundings very carefully. Lin Jingyan watched him, and, slowly and carefully, he controlled his Dark Thunder to follow Demon Subduer's turning, finally adjusting his position. Right there. With Lin Jingyan's thought, Dark Thunder swept his hand and threw a paralysis needle. What a simple ambush, everyone thought. But it hit. Even though a paralysis needle was silent, Tang Hao had been turning Demon Subduer's field of view the whole time. How could a top god like him make the naive mistake of leaving a blind spot? But he hadn't discovered this paralysis needle, and this simple ambush actually succeeded in hitting Demon Subduer's body. Dark Thunder jumped out from his hiding spot. This was a map with very good weather. The sunlight shone in mottled patterns on the ground, and as Dark Thunder rushed toward Demon Subduer, the chaotic shadows swayed. Demon Subduer couldn't move after being hit by the paralysis needle, and Dark Thunder tossed a handful of sand right onto his face. After paralysis, blind. Consecutive status effects. No matter how skilled Tang Hao was, in a situation like this, he couldn't withstand the attacks of an old and experienced expert like Lin Jingyan. Lin Jingyan had calculated the duration of blind very precisely. Right when it was about to wear off, a brick hit Demon Subduer's head from behind. After blind, dizzy, and so a new offensive began. When he fought until he had no way of continuing, Lin Jingyan wasn't greedy. He knocked Demon Subduer over and then quickly hid himself again. Tang Hao almost felt like he was going crazy. This series of attacks had really come out of nowhere. How had that paralysis needle managed to hit him? With that barrage, he had lost a fourth of his health, while his head was still filled with fog. Poor Tang Hao lacked the multi-angle view or the replayability of the broadcasters. At first, The audience had also been confused as to how Tang Hao hadn't seen the needle. But Tang Hao's point of view was replayed several times, and people realized that in that moment, there truly had been no paralysis needle in his view. Where had the paralysis needle gone? After analysis from all different angles, the crowd finally realized what was strange. It was the light. It was the shadow. It was Lin Jingyan's choice of position. When he had controlled Dark Thunder to throw the needle, it had passed through an area where the light and shadows interlaced. And so, in that instant, the needle truly seemed to vanish. This was something that could be done in Glory. The crowd was dumbfounded. Using descriptors like extensive and profound to describe an online game was somewhat excessive. Even the creators of this game couldn't have thought of so many details. It was this group of pro players, those standing at the top of Glory, who were constantly digging up the subtle quirks of this game, and then finding uses for them in a match that could shock even the game's creators. Did Tang Hao know about this sort of thing? Seeing how off-balance Demon Subduer seemed as he flipped up from the ground, everyone felt a bit sympathetic for him. To be beaten down like this in the very first moments of a match, he must be very alarmed. Demon Subduer moved around frantically. He couldn't figure out how he had just been hit by that needle, and so he no longer dared to let Demon Subduer to just stand waiting in one place. He leapt around the area, but he couldn't find any trace of Dark Thunder. Playing dirty. Again, it was the dirty playstyle. Tang Hao grit his teeth. Because Wind Howl was in a bad situation right now, the outside world had all sorts of criticism for their decision to give up on playing dirty. Tang Hao just hoped that soon, they could prove that their current style was much stronger than playing dirty. But now, on the individual battlefield, he was knocked over by dirty playing until he couldn't find North. And this person was Lin Jingyan, the former user of Demon Subduer, the old man that Tang Hao had already surpassed at that All-Stars with the Junior succeeds Senior. Hiding and sneaking, Tang Hao said in the chat, with some irritation. He wasn't someone who really liked chatting with the opponent during a match, as he preferred to use his fists to talk. But now, he couldn't even find his target. What frustration. Hiding and sneaking is another method of obtaining victory. Lin Jingyan answered. We'll see how long you can hide for. Tang Hao said. You just be more careful. Lin Jingyan replied. Demon Subduer continued to move, turning and searching non-stop. What about Lin Jingyan's Dark Thunder? Under Tang Hao's intense scrutiny, he couldn't hide too comfortably anymore. But clearly, he was extremely familiar with this map. To be able to create that incredible situation with the light earlier, did Lin Jingyan's understanding of and skill in using this map need to be mentioned? Tang Hao searched and searched, but he couldn't find him. Lin Jingyan, however, had already finished another round of adjustments. Dark Thunder once again withdrew a paralysis needle, and now just waited for the right chance. Now that Tang Hao was controlling Demon Subduer to run around non-stop, it really was more difficult to find an opening. But Lin Jingyan's view wasn't fixed on Demon Subduer's body. Instead, he was waiting for Demon Subduer to enter his field of view. Throw. A paralysis needle flew outward again. Demon Subduer's view was turning, clearly toward this direction. But the entire crowd lifted their heads to look at the display screen. Even though Tang Hao's view was turned in the direction of the needle, there was a wall positioned just there. When Tang Hao glanced over, the needle was still flying behind the wall, and he couldn't see it. By the time the needle passed the wall and was in sight, Demon Subduer's view had already turned away, and then hit. A repeat of the match's beginning. Tang Hao was going crazy, but what could he do? His mood had no way of dispelling the status effects his character suffered. Lin Jingyan very steadily reused the earlier series of attacks, forming a seamless combo that the opponent had absolutely no way of breaking. Demon Subduer's health plummeted another 25%. He now had only half health remaining, while Lin Jingyan's Dark Thunder had yet to be injured. Everyone watching felt as though their eyes would fall out of their heads. Even if Wind Howl's results in the team competition were poor, their individual members were still quite strong. Tang Hao against Lin Jingyan. This conflict between old and new brawlers had already been decided at the All-Star Weekend 2 years ago with the victory of the new WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Everyone could see that Tang Hao's skill level was indeed above that of Lin Jingyan. But that skill level, in reality, only referred to technical skill. In terms of this, the old general really couldn't keep up with the new and cutting edge. But in this battle, had Tang Hao had the opportunity to display his superior technical skill? No, not at all. Both times, he had suffered a sneak attack from a paralysis needle. With one attack, his character was completely out of his control. What kind of technique could he display? Using the map, Lin Jingyan could knock away half of Demon Subduer's health without losing any of his own. If this weren't happening before everyone's eyes right now, who could believe this match would play out like this? Demon Subduer was once again knocked to the ground. But this time, when he jumped back up in a rage, he discovered that Dark Thunder hadn't vanished but was instead right in front of him. "How come you're not running?" Tang Hao said through clenched teeth, immediately preparing to attack. But Dark Thunder had already rushed toward him first. He hadn't run away, he had stayed here to continue launching his offensive. Perfect timing. Tang Hao's spirits rose. The two unexplained ambushes earlier had made him depressed and frustrated beyond belief. But now, seeing that Lin Jingyan actually planned to fight him directly now, he grew incomparably excited. Would a fight like this scare me? The two brawlers swung their fists and began a frenzied fight. In terms of technical skill, Tang Hao was indeed superior. In this sort of direct battle, Lin Jingyan was at a disadvantage. But in the end, the one who fell first was still Demon Subduer, and this time, he could not stand back up. His health had already reached 0. If I couldn't even take care of you when you were at 50% health, then I really should just retire. Lin Jingyan left this final message as he stared down at the fallen Demon Subduer. His Dark Thunder still had 17% health left. Using 50% of his own health, Tang Hao knocked away 83%. It was powerful, it was domineering, as expected of the number one brawler. But he lost. The crowd's applause was sent to Lin Jingyan. Even though he was no longer the number one brawler, even though he had fallen out of the all-star rankings, even though the radiance of a god had already left him, he won. On this arena, what fame or skill could compare to the simple truth of victory? Only victory was the most real. What use was skill if it couldn't achieve victory? The current Team Wind Howl included many such players with high skill. But they lacked victory, and thus they lost the faith of their supporters. When Lin Jingyan came off stage, he looked at the audience section for the guest team fans. The seats, already somewhat empty, were quiet and still. Old Lu was holding Wind Howl's flag and just standing there. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1319 Victory. Audio source, WuxiaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1319 Victory. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. 1-0. Tyranny took the lead in their home game. This shouldn't have been anything surprising, but the one who lost was Wind Howl's current core player, Tang Hao, while the one who won had been Wind Howl's former core player, Lin Jingyan. The circumstances behind the outcome completely changed the flavor of it. The cheers from the Tyranny fans in the stadium weren't too crazy, though. After all, the importance of this confrontation revolved around Wind Howl's past and present. The Tyranny fans weren't able to understand it. As for Wind Howl's fans, there were a few places where the away team fans sat, and right now, Wind Howl's fans looked very dispirited. The first individual round had just finished, and some of them had already gotten up and left. Lin Jingyan returned to his seat, and his teammates congratulated him on his win. In many people's eyes, beating Tang Hao should be a joyous event. However, Lin Jingyan didn't seem that excited. He was a gentle and polite player. He simply smiled as he sat down. As for Wind Howl's side, he didn't even look at him. Even though he harbored some nostalgia for his character Demon Subduer and Wind Howl, the past was the past. He was in his declining years, but as long as there was still a path forward, there would always be a future. His future was here. Lin Jingyan clutched Dark Thunder's account card in his hands. Meanwhile, in another stadium, another individual round was about to be completed. Blue Rain vs Tiny Herb. Lu Hanwen vs Gao Yingji. The two most eye-catching players of the new generation. One directly being thrown into the main roster, climbing his way through the cruel competition, while the other was carefully protected, adapting to the environment step by step. Two different methods, but both for the purpose of throwing the two into outstanding pro players. Right now, the two were no longer inexperienced greenhorns. The two symbols of the new generation were fighting one-on-one for their respective teams. Formless Phantom Blade. Lu Hanwen's Flowing Clouds let loose a high-level skill. Flowing Clouds was a rarely seen greatsword blade master. Although his attack speed was slow, the area of effect range was greater. His silver weapon, Flame Shadow, drew a clear arc in the air in an attempt to knock down the airborne Kind Tree. There's nowhere to run. Lu Hanwen excitedly typed into the public chat. This youth seemed to have endless energy. Everyone could always feel the passion flowing through him. In comparison, Gao Yingji wasn't as flashy as him, but having been sheltered by the team, he had a more thorough understanding of his team's expectations for him. His thirst for victory was no less than Lu Hanwen's, and his playing on stage always appeared meticulous. Despite being caught by Flowing Cloud's formless Phantom Blade, Gao Yingji wasn't flustered. Attacks from Greatsword Blade Masters were more powerful, but that was at the sacrifice of speed. Speed was the weakness of Greatsword users, and an area that could be exploited. Disperse Powder. Kind Tree threw a handful of Disperse Powder. It dispelled debuffs, but more importantly, it also reduced the target's attack speed. Although it was a low-level skill and its debuffer effect wasn't too strong, for an already slow Flowing Clouds, it only exacerbated the wound. Hit. Under the effects of Disperse Powder, Flowing Clouds' offensive instantly turned sluggish. Still, in order to land the Disperse Powder, Gao Yingji had been prepared for Kind Tree to take a hit. But at that moment, Immortal Guides the Way. Lu Hanwen cancelled Formless Phantom Blade and switched to Immortal Guides the Way. Also a hit. The powerful blow-away effect instantly sent Kind Tree flying. Flowing Cloud didn't give chase. Disperse Powder was difficult to handle for a Greatsword Blade Master. He had wanted to buy himself more distance, so he quickly put the effects of the skill to use. This low-level skill with a blow-away effect had a very long ending lag, up to 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Immortal Guides the Way didn't send the target flying far enough to take 10 seconds to return. Gao Yingji wasn't willing to waste these 10 seconds. After being blown away, Kind Tree quick recovered as he landed, but he didn't get up after rolling. He swept up his broom and started flying through the air. 10 seconds. It wouldn't even take 2 seconds for him to get back. Frost powder. Another magic powder sprinkled down. This skill wasn't a direct attack though, instead it imbued his weapon with an ice element. Morning Dew. This was the name of the silver broom in Kind Tree's hands. After applying frost powder, the broom glowed with a blue light. Fine ice crystals rained down everywhere it passed. Attack. Witches had strong close combat abilities. Even though they mainly relied on normal attacks, through the application of magic powders and their ability to jump 6 times in the air with the mastery of their brooms, the normal attacks from witches weren't normal in the slightest. "You're not going to win like this." Quote. A message from Lu Hanwen popped up in the chat. Earthquake Sword. Flowing Cloud's greatsword flung out a spellblade skill. Closely following it was a flash of sword light, another sword draw, a vertical earthquake sword and a horizontal sword draw, in addition to Flowing Cloud's abnormal attack range, crisscrossed into a gigantic cross as it soared towards Kind Tree. The attack came out of nowhere, and the intertwined skills complemented each other perfectly. But attack speed. Yu Wenzu sighed from offstage. Slow. This flaw was deeply etched into Yu Wenzu's heart. And Flowing Cloud's beautiful attack had a few openings because of his slow attack speed. There might be openings, but could the other side seize them? Some openings required strong perception and high skill to grasp. For example, Yu Wenzu noticed the current openings formed by Flowing Cloud's 2 skills, but if he were in Kind Heart's position, he would have a very difficult time taking advantage of them. Would Gao Yingji be able to do it? No problem. On Tiny Herb's side, Wang Jiexi quietly made this prediction when he saw this attack. Gao Yingji should be able to see and grasp these openings. However, should be able to and actually doing it were 2 very different things. Gao Yingji didn't disappoint Wang Jiexi though. Bearing the weight of Tiny Herb's future, Gao Yingji seized the opportunity. Kind Heart swayed gently in the air, dodging the 2 intersecting skills. Whoosh! Morning Dew swung down, hitting Flowing Cloud. Magic powders could not be stacked, but ice powder's effect reduced the speed of the target and had a chance to freeze. Both effects deadly for Flowing Cloud. Victory had been decided. The audience could already tell. Afterwards, there were sighs, and there were cheers. The feelings stemming from victory always came from the 2 extremes. The outcome of the battle between the 2 new generation stars had been decided. With Gao Yingji's victory, Tiny Herb took the lead in their away game. On another stage, the 2 seniors of the old generation were still fighting it out. Bang! A deafening sound. The collision between weapons carried the momentum and visual effects from skills. The 2 characters bounced back and fell to the ground. How fierce! You're putting your life on the line. Aren't you afraid of breaking your hands? Lord Grimm stood back up with blood dripping from his mouth. A message leaped out into the public chat. Your record's going to end here. Quote. Another Summer of Sleep pointed his sword at Lord Grimm. Sun Zheping replied ruthlessly. Stop talking big. Last round, Old Lin said the exact same thing. And do you know what the outcome was? Yi Shi said. Old Lin. WushOurWorldAudio.com. Didn't you guys fight Blue Rain last round? Last round, Yi Shi said. Wild Blood Strike. Sun Zheping ended the talk there. Another Summer of Sleep forced his way over. A bloody shadow formed around his sword and then flew towards Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm immediately dodged it. The blood shadow hacked into the ground. The shattered earth suddenly shot towards Lord Grimm. Whirlwind Strike. Another Summer of Sleep's sword released a whirlwind. The broken stones caught up in it, smashed towards Lord Grimm. This was Happy's home game and Yi Shu's chosen map, so it was naturally a very simple one. But who would have thought that his opponent's frenzy of attacks would pressure Yishu to the point of helplessness? The unspecialized blitz that no one in the alliance could block wasn't being allowed to show up. Retreat. Another retreat. Under these fierce attacks, Lord Grim continued to retreat up until he was no longer able to. Another Summer of Sleep's greatsword finally smashed into him. But in this instant, Lord Grim's body suddenly dispersed like petals. Another Summer of Sleep had only hit a fake illusion. Shadow clone technique. No, this wasn't it. It was shadow steps. For Lord Grim surrounded another Summer of Sleep. Which one was the real one? At this point, it didn't seem to matter. What was most important was that Lord Grim could finally start attacking. In the end, victory went to Yishu. The moment he took his hands off the mouse, he let out a long sigh of relief. This match had been too close for comfort. He had nearly lost. It was really hard to imagine how an opponent with a hand injury as serious as Sun Zheping fought more and more without regard for anything else. Had the second half of the season ignited his spirit? But it was truly a pity. Every round, he could only fight a single time in the individual competition. Sometimes, he even need to rest one round. The amount of competition he got every time probably wasn't enough to satisfy him at all. Yeah, not enough at all. Sun Zheping stared at the fallen another Summer of Sleep, who was looking up into the sky. His character probably wasn't willing either. If only I could play a few more minutes every time. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1320. A New Point to Picket. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1320. A New Point to Picket. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. The curtains closed on round 26. Happy won against Heavenly Swords 9-1. Although their relationship was good, it didn't affect Happy's ruthlessness on stage. Blue Rain vs Tiny Herb. The away team Tiny Herb utilized their strong momentum from Gao Yingji beating Lu Hanwen, winning the following two individual competition rounds in the group arena. They went into the team competition W with a 5-0 lead. However, in the end, the home team Blue Rain won and the round ended with a 5-5 tie. Wind Howl vs Tyranny. Tang Hao losing to Lin Jingyan was undoubtedly the highlight of the match. However, they were still able to win 2 points, ending the round 2-8. This sort of outcome did little to help their placements on the rankings. Team 301 beat Parade 8-2. 100 Blossoms beat Bright Green 10-0. The distance between Wind Howl and the top 8 was growing wider and wider, and in their next round, Wind Howl would be facing Blue Rain. Wind Howl had the home game advantage, but the community did not think highly of their chances. In their eyes, Wind Howl was becoming more and more lackluster. Would they be able to win back their reputation? Round 27. The highlight match was the home team Tiny Herb welcoming the challengers team Happy. After several rounds during the second half of the season, the Happy haters finally found a point to picket. Happy had started the first half of the season poorly, and while the second half of the season was a large improvement, it couldn't compare to their previous win streak. These haters compared the results from both halves of the season and quickly found the teams that had won against Happy in both their home and away games. Samsara, Blue Rain, Tyranny. These three teams had won in a dominating fashion twice. As a result, an article titled, "What Looks to Be Beautiful" was published in the Esports Time. The author was the Esports Time writer Ruan Cheng, who had been attacking Happy ever since Changru's 1v3 challenge. In the article, Ruan Cheng detailed the relationship between Happy's ups and downs and their season schedule. In the first half of the season, Happy had met many strong teams at the beginning, so their first few steps had been difficult. But this sort of confidence could not last. Because of the competitive format, where each team played the other twice, Happy once again faced those unbeatable opponents. And this time, whether it was home or away game, Happy still couldn't beat these opponents. Those who hold hopes for Happy should give up. Ruan Chen wrote at the end of the article. This team is not able to reach the top. If you think they can win the championships, you might as well just buy a lottery ticket. Being able to make the playoffs would be a joke with their strength. And in the latter half of the season, teams will muster everything they have to make it through the door to playoffs. If Happy falls behind, no need to feel disappointed. Relying on luck to make it to the end of the season is impossible. This Ruan Chen is always out to get us. Reading the Esports Time, Chen Guo suddenly shouted furiously. If you know, then why do you still buy the Esports Time? Yishu laughed at her. Chen Guo was speechless. Wasn't it because she was still hoping to prove these haters wrong with their outstanding performance? And the result? Instead, anytime Happy messed up even the tiniest bit, those guys would target it and talk about it endlessly. This time, they had actually labeled Happy as a fake powerhouse just because they had been double killed by a few top teams. Shouldn't this label be given to Wind Howl? Don't be angry with these people. Wind Howl went from a top team to their current stage, but he didn't say a single word about them. He's completely fixated on us. Chen Guo said. Next match, he'll probably be even more heated. Yishu said. Round 27, Happy would be challenging Tiny Herb.
In round 8, Happy lost to Tiny Herb 2-8, and Tang Ru had failed to keep her 1v3 promise, destroying her image at the end of the round.
It was at this point that Ruan Chen had started walking the hateful path towards Happy. Right now, the league had cycled back. Happy would be facing Tiny Herb in an away game. This time, the match would be even more difficult. Ruan Chen probably had an article written already and ready to be published. If Happy lost again, Tiny Herb would become another team that had double-killed them. There would be even more proof that Happy really was just a fake powerhouse. Who knew how much ridicule would come their way? Chen Guo just couldn't do it. Even if they couldn't persuade them to switch sides through action, Chen Guo hoped to at least give them a hard slap in the face. The problem was that they would be facing a top team like Tiny Herb in an away game. Saying something like, "You have to win," would be unreasonable and put too much pressure on the team. In short, we just have to try our best, Yishu said. Chen Guo sighed. She really envied Yishu's calmness. Sure enough, Ruan Chen was very excited about round 27 to an unprecedented extent too. The highlight match chosen to be broadcast was Happy vs Tiny Herb. This time, we have a new face for our broadcast. However, I don't think anyone is a stranger to him. Please welcome Esports Time's special column reviewer Ruan Chen. I'm sure many of you viewers out there have read an article by Teacher Ruan, especially the latest issue of Esports Time. Teacher Ruan's "What Looks to be Beautiful" had a loud reaction. Teacher Ruan has always had a different viewpoint towards Team Happy. I figured that Teacher Ruan would definitely be paying particular attention to the match today, so invited him to the broadcast to discuss this match together with us. You're welcome. Hello Pan Lin. Hello Coach Lee. Ruan Chen greeted Pan Lin and Li Yibo confidently. Should we start off by listening to Teacher Ruan's thoughts on today's match? WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Pan Lin asked. I still stand by the viewpoint I detailed before in the past. There is still quite a gap between Team Happy and the top teams. I think the chances of Tiny Herb winning should be very high. Ruan Chen didn't mind predicting the outcome of the match. Compared to the cautious Li Yibo, it was truly too big of a difference. Gotcha. What about you, Coach Lee? What are your thoughts? You seem to think highly of Happy these days. Pan Lin didn't forget about his old partner Coach Lee just because they had a new invited guest today. Happy is a new team, so their potential is huge. In the past half season, their growth has been very obvious. However, compared to Ruan Cheng's clear-cut position, his evasiveness seemed to show that he still stood by Happy. Okay, we've heard the opinions of our two guests. Let's take a look at the stage. The two teams have entered the venue, Pan Lin said. The camera cut to the stadium. The players on both teams were waving their hands to the crowd as they walked in. I wonder who Tiny Herb will be sending out first, Pan Lin asked. What he was really asking was, who would be fighting Yi Shu today? Would Yi Shu's winning streak finally end here? Most teams put their best players into the group arena to win those 2 points. Figuring out who will be playing in the individual competition truly isn't an easy matter, Ruan Cheng sighed, but the implications within his words were clear. He was saying that Yi Shu was only able to reach his win streak because Happy's opponents rarely placed their core players into the individual competitions. But right now, Yi Shu had 26 won matches in a row, an incredible achievement. Even if he had never encountered a top god, just being able to win 26 matches in a row was an achievement that seemed possible only by pro players competing in the online games arena. The difference in skill between pro players wasn't so large that anyone could be casually beaten. Those top gods had stumbled against countless non-gods. But Yi Shu had never faltered in 26 matches. Indeed, not meeting any top gods was a reason, but using it to try and persuade people was purely for the purpose of denouncing him. Ruan Cheng seemed to also know that focusing on this topic wasn't reasonable, so he stayed within the appropriate boundaries and didn't directly say these implications out loud. He simply mentioned it in the passing. Okay, the players on both teams are coming down from the stage. Yi Shu is just staying there. The big screen hasn't even released the lineups yet, Pan Lin said. Let's see who Tiny Herb will send up, Li Yibo said plainly. Xu Bin. Finally, the two players competing in the first round of the individual competition were displayed on the screen. Happy had sent Yi Shu. Tiny Herb had sent Xu Bin and his knight character Angelica. It's Xu Bin. What are your thoughts on this arrangement? Pan Lin asked. This matchup will depend on who is better at controlling the pace. Whichever side is able to drag the other into their pace will have a better chance at winning, Li Yibo said. It sounds like it'll be a very interesting match. What are your thoughts, Teacher Ruan? Pan Lin said. Yes. Ruan Cheng simply replied with a nod. Even though he really wanted to hate on Happy, he didn't like to be slapped in the face either. Yi Shu had already 26 won matches in a row. He didn't dare casually favor Yi Shu's opponent. Gnome Yummy release rate's going to slow down a bit for about a week or so, and Chapter